What is going on, everybody? Today we're going to analyze the tape of defensive end Jermaine Johnson, who ended up breaking out in his second season for the New York Jets. We're going to get into what this guy showed on tape, how he can continue to develop, and why, based off of his tape from last season, the guy's potential is through the roof. We're going to start right away with his pass rush upside because there are so many great plays on tape. One of the things you're going to see with Johnson right away on tape is he is strong as hell. His bull rush, to me, is elite. It's one of those moves that really gets guys off balance. It's one of those moves that's really disruptive. And you'll see it play in, play out, how as this guy makes contact with tackles, these guys struggle to contain his power. He's oftentimes generating pressure. He's oftentimes pushing offensive tackles right back into the quarterback. And it's really just the way he makes contact with these guys. You can see on this one here, he's going to load up, get the helmet, the shoulder pads, the arms, everything's going to land right to the inside of this offensive tackle. He's going to end up being able to get underneath him, pick him up, push him right back into the quarterback, and with that, the quarterback's going to step up, and the quarterback's going to end up getting sacked. You see the entire defensive line kind of swarm to the football. Although Johnson's the one that actually forced this sack, he only gets credit for half a sack on this statistically, according to Pro Football Focus. There are so many other disruptive plays on tape. Take this next one here as an example. On this one here, once again, he's going to get right into Mike McGlinchey, the right tackle of the Denver Broncos. He's going to force this guy right back into the quarterback once again. He's going to generate the pressure, and he's going to end up getting to the quarterback. Now, there's a part of this play that is going to be overlooked, and that is that as soon as Jermaine Johnson makes contact with the tackle and he starts pushing him into the quarterback's going to take steps to the left. The quarterback's going to have to avoid that pressure, and that right there is disruptive enough. Now, even if the quarterback throws the football here, the fact that Johnson is able to make the quarterback get off his spot, the internal clock speeds up a little bit, to me is an impressive part within this play. But of course, as you guys see, Johnson actually gets to the quarterback. Just the way this guy makes contact with these tackles. And the important thing with Johnson is it's not just the fact that he has an elite bull rush, right? Because the bull rush works. But the thing with the bull rush working is it only works if you have other moves to kind of go with that, right? So he's not always just bull rushing. An example of that would be this play right here against Tyrone Smith. You're going to see Johnson do a really nice job getting past Tyrone Smith here. He's going to end up giving him a hezzy move, and with that hezzy move, he's going to actually end up just chopping down the hand of Tyrone Smith. So let's go ahead and break this play down. So as soon as the snap begins, Tyrone Smith's going to set up in a 45-degree set. Johnson's going to square up Tyrone Smith, and Johnson's going to actually fake an inside move, right? He's going to give Tyrone Smith the hezzy move. So if you guys keep an eye on Johnson, watch the fake to the inside right there. So right away, Johnson's going to get out of his stance, fake to the inside a little bit. You see him kind of shift his body towards the inside of the hands. And then with his inside hand, understanding what Tyrone Smith's going to do, he's going to actually chop with his inside hand, the outside hand of Tyrone Smith. And with that, he's going to be able to hit the corner. And all of that is planned by Johnson. He knows that he's going to fake an inside move. He's going to chop down the hand. And then after he chops down the hand, with the inside hand specifically, he's going to actually rip it and really get into Tyrone Smith right there. And that rip right there is going to allow Johnson to win. So with that, he's able to pressure the quarterback, and the quarterback has to get the ball out. And it is an incomplete pass. A good job by the linebacker to be able to get his hand in there. But again, when you look at a guy like Jermaine Johnson, the guy has a pass rush plan. And I oftentimes talk about that in my videos. For a guy to have success in the NFL, you got to be able to have a pass rush plan. You got to know what you're doing as you're kind of going up against these tackles. On one play, you come in with a bull rush. On the next play, you do some sort of hezzy move, and then you hit an outside counter. And then on the third play, maybe you spin to the inside of a guy. Maybe you set him up to the outside, and then you end up spinning back to the inside, and you generate pressure on the quarterback. So when I look at a guy like Jermaine Johnson, the guy has a pass rush plan, and he knows how to put it together, and I think that's why he had so much success this past season. Now, to me, Johnson was still basically a part-time player. The guy played a little bit over 700 snaps, but the flashes were there, and statistically, he had a really good season. But I think going into year 3, as the Jets have made some moves, they've gotten rid of some guys, Jermaine Johnson is going to be the full-time starter now. And I think Jermaine Johnson is going to have a fantastic year 3. I think he's going to be one of the guys that's going to break out this season, because you can already see the pass rush upside with him. Now, another thing you're going to see with Johnson on this play is he's going to do a great job once again with the hezzy move. And with that hezzy move, he's going to double hand swipe the right guard. So again, you got to be able to utilize the different moves, right? So we've already seen this guy bull rush. We've seen him hezzy, use the inside hand to chop down and turn that into a rip move. We've also seen him spin, and now we're seeing him double hand swipe, right? It's a hezzy to double hand swipe. All right, so again, there's a bunch of different moves, and there are ways for him to ultimately win. There's ways for him to get to the quarterback. And I know technically on this play here, Johnson doesn't actually get any stats for this play. It's 1st and 10, it's an incomplete pass. But this is the importance of watching tape, right? You see a guy actually be able to get in there and generate a little bit of pressure to a quarterback. You're also able to kind of see how that impacts a team. On top of that, you don't necessarily realize the impacts that a defensive end may have on a quarterback. So you got an interception here, but there's no stat that a defensive lineman generated pressure and that pressure went for an interception. But on this one here, we'll chalk this up as an interception caused by Jermaine Johnson. Now, I talked about having a pass rush plan, right? Knowing what to do in terms of your movement, knowing how to set guys up and be able to kind of make sure that those moves that you're ultimately doing works. But there's another part of that as well that I think Jermaine Johnson does a really good job at. And what that is if his first move does not work, he'll come back to a second move. And if that doesn't work, he'll come back to a third move. So on this play here, Johnson's doing something specific that I kind of want to point out. So he is going up against the backup right tackle of the Eagles. Still a pretty good football player if you guys ask me. But ultimately what Johnson's going to try to do is he's going to try to fake an inside hezzy. And then with that, he's going to try to cross chop the right tackle. And it doesn't work. Now with that cross chop, the right hand doesn't land properly. You also see the right tackle's right hand ends up landing as Johnson's trying to get that right hand to come over the top of the right hand of that right tackle. And it ultimately doesn't work. And you also see Johnson with the left hand trying to pin the backside of him. Now with that, you see the tackle do a good job. He also brings the left hand of him right back in. So the tackle ends up winning this rep early on. But again, Johnson, being a good pass rusher, is then going to turn this into a second move. And what he's going to do is, with this right hand, watch him grab on to the right tackle here. And look at him throw that right tackle off of him. So to me, if your first move does not work, you got to be able to go to your second move. And if your second move doesn't work, you got to be able to go to your third move. One of the things that makes Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, and TJ Watt absolutely superstar caliber defensive ends is these guys not only have a pass rush plan, but their motor is through the roof. These guys come in with their first move, their second move, their third move, their fourth move, and they just keep going. And with Johnson, you definitely see that as well. And the last thing that I want to just point out when it comes to Johnson's pass rushing is he does a good job moving. He does a really good job being able to run defensive line games. And not every defensive lineman moves that well, but with Johnson, he does a great job changing direction. All right, you can see on this one, he ends up getting a sack on the quarterback. On this one, he's going to do another good job with the defensive lineman where he's going to slant to the inside. He's going to pressure the quarterback a little bit. And I do think Johnson still has so much room to continue to improve. He is testing pass rush moves. You are seeing it actually work. Here's a cross chop where he's able to turn it into pressure. And Bryce Huff actually ends up getting the sack on this one. But again, if you guys look at Johnson, just the way he sets it up to me is perfect. All right. And again, these are the things that are going to translate into him having success. I think this season specifically, Johnson's going to end up hitting well over 12 sacks. If he has a full healthy season, based off of what he's shown on in terms of his pass rush, the guy's going to have a great season this season. But I also want to talk a little bit about his effort and how it leads to him having success, specifically when it comes to defending the run. And I want to talk a little bit about how he's able to handle different things within the run game specifically. And we'll start right here, this first play against the Miami Dolphins. So one of the things you'll notice with Johnson is he isn't super strong. He is a good run defender. But one of the things you are going to see is this guy does try to fight off blocks by essentially going around blocks, right? So in this one here, for example, he's not going to go through number 70. He's not going to hold him up. He's going to try to get around him. So you see Johnson actually gives up a lot of ground on this play. So you'll see where Johnson initially makes contact with number 70. It's right about there. But you'll see Johnson's going to end up like way out here when he actually disengages with the block. So one of the things you're going to note with Johnson is he uses his speed more to get around blocks than he does power, which is not a bad thing if you're able to effectively get off the block. And with Johnson, especially against zone runs where it's very, very important to be able to either set the front side or get off the block, you're going to see that Johnson does that effectively, right? So on this play here, this one loses 2 to 3 yards. And then on this next one, he's going to actually jump the inside of this right tackle. This is another way you can kind of get off the block. Now, you do got to be careful if you're jumping the inside gap. If the running back is somehow able to hit it back towards the outside, you're potentially going to give a big play. But do keep in mind on this one, the running back was to Johnson's side, so it's not really likely that this guy's going to be able to bounce it all the way to the left. So it really doesn't matter for Johnson. He understands the situation. The tackle really has a backside seal to Johnson. So I like how Johnson's able to use the quickness to get off the block. And then with that, he's able to kind of come back to the inside. Now, he doesn't make the play because the running back ends up cutting it even further to the inside. And again, Johnson's not going to make every play. But Johnson does a great job shutting down at least this gap here. The running back does pick up about 7 to 8 yards on this one. But Johnson, once again, does a good job getting off the block. But again, it's not necessarily with the power. It's more so with the speed and quickness. And I think that is one of the things I definitely like with Johnson when it comes to defending zone runs. Now on this play, you're going to get a zone run towards the left. Johnson's going to line up in the long 3 technique. The tackle here has a reach block on Johnson. And Johnson, instead of trying to stay in front of it, is actually going to just go around it. And he's fast enough where he's able to go underneath it, essentially. And he's able to kind of get in there and help make the play. Now on this play right here, picks up no yards. Johnson does a great job pursuing it from the backside. So the running back on this play wants to cut this to the inside. But because Johnson's able to get around the block, Johnson's essentially chasing this from the backside. So there's nowhere for the running back to go, right? The running back essentially wants to cut this somewhere in between here or potentially back over here. But because Johnson's pursuing this from the backside, there's just no way the running back's going to be able to cut it. So he has to bounce it to the outside. And of course, you got the safety support. You got the cornerback support. The play ends up picking up no yards. So again, a great job using that quickness and speed to be able to defend the run. And I don't think Johnson's bad at defending the run by no means. I think he's a really, really good run defender. And I will also say this, even though he gets moved at the point of attack at times, Max Crosby in his first 2 seasons also used to get moved at the point of attack. But one of the things I see very similar with Jermaine Johnson that I saw with Max Crosby when he was a younger football player, that is these guys use their the elite tools that they have, right? So they'll use their hands to punch guys' hands down. They'll know how to break contact. They'll fork guys upwards. They know how to get around blocks, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing that Johnson, for example, on this one, ends up actually making contact with the tackle. It's not terrible that this tackle moves Johnson, right? Because he is able to effectively get off the block. This play picks up 4 yards. The running back does basically hit it right in the gap that Johnson should theoretically be able to protect. Let me just go ahead and show you guys why it's important for Johnson to hold his ground. So on this one here, as the tackle makes contact with Johnson, if Johnson stops this tackle in his tracks, if there's no more movement on the front side, the defensive tackle is going to control his guy. You got 56 coming off the backside. You got 94 coming off the backside. And essentially the gap is not going to be as large for the running back to hit. As opposed to if you create more movement over here to the right, that's going to just essentially add to how much more space the running back has. So on zone runs, it is pivotal for these defensive linemen to be able to hold the front side, right? You got to really set that edge. But again, if you're able to get off the block, it's not that big of a deal. And with Johnson, he's definitely able to get off the block. And that's probably the only criticism I have for him, is he just needs to continue to get better at getting off the block, especially as he's on the front side of these runs. And I really do think Johnson is going to continue to get better. And I think as he gets more years in the NFL, I think these are one of the things that will allow him to become a really, really good overall defensive end. I think Johnson has the potential to become a top 5 player at the position. And I think year 3 is going to be the year that we're going to see that actually happen, right? I think this is the year it's really going to happen for Johnson. Now, he's also very good at pursuing, right? As I stated, when it comes to effort, the guy's phenomenal, right? And he does a really good job on backsides. So on this one here, the tight end needs to get in front of Jermaine Johnson. He needs to be able to make sure Johnson does not hit the backside gap. And that doesn't happen, right? Johnson not only explodes out of his stance, he's able to get past here, and he's, obviously he tosses the tight end as well. But even if he didn't toss the tight end does not have leverage. Johnson has the backside containment. This play would have never worked anyways. But just a really, really nice job with Johnson to be able to beat the tight end. Now, as an overall run defender, I think Johnson's probably at about 70% of where he will be in about 2 years. And again, I do think it's a strength of his, right? I think the way he plays the run is one of his strengths. And I don't want you guys to think that me criticizing him and how he takes on guys at the point of attack is a bad thing, right? It's not a bad thing, but it is one of the things to just kind of keep an eye on. As he continues to develop, I do love how he utilizes his length. You see him here with the right hand, really get into the tackle. He's going to absolutely toss this guy to the side. Just a really, really good job. Right hand lands to the inside. Look at this movement. Bam, tosses this guy right off of him. It's a really, really good job right there to be able to defend the run. Overall, I think Johnson has so much upside, and the crazy thing is this guy still just finished his second season. At some point, all of the different pass rush moves that this guy has shown us, it's going to all come together. And he's going to be able to utilize all of it. He's going to be able to put it all together. And he's going to fine-tune it to the point where Jermaine Johnson is going to be very, very difficult to block. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, consider subscribing. This season, we are going to be doing a ton of content of the New York Jets. They are going to be one of the teams that we are going to add this season. We're going to consistently post Jets film breakdowns. My goal is to get at least 3 every single month. So if you guys are not subscribed, make sure you guys subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.